we go again?
Oh, no, not again.
You've seen it before, haven't you?
Dom, how long have we been doing this?
Once more unto the bridge. Dear friends.
Again and again and again until we're both dead.
Hello and welcome to You've Seen It Before, movie reviews, connections in mind. Avengers Endgame is directed by the Russo brothers and stars basically everyone in the MCU. And this picks up right where Avengers Infinity War left off, post-snap. Half of the life in the universe has been wiped out and is up to the remaining Avengers to find a way to undo what Thanos has done and bring back everyone that he snapped away. But then again, some others may not make it out at all. This episode will contain spoilers of Avengers Endgame, as well as certain other films and TV series. There'll be a full list in the description below. Let me say that again. There will be spoilers of Avengers Endgame. So if you have not seen Avengers Endgame yet, you will stop the video right now and come back when you've seen it. Because I will not be doing a spoiler-free analysis or review of this because it's relatively pointless to do that at this point. One last time, there will be spoilers. So if you have not seen Avengers Endgame yet or any of the films and TV shows listed below, stop the video at this point and come back when you've seen it. With these things in mind though, let's get into a spoiler-filled review and analysis of Avengers Endgame. Now, this is pretty much exactly what I thought it was going to be. It is the culmination, the end of the 22 film Infinity War saga, the end of the MCU as we know it right now. There will be other MCU films to come, but this is pretty much the end for the core the Avengers as we know and the shape of the MCU, which has been building up to this moment. We thought it was building up to Infinity War with Thanos doing the snap. That was just part one. This is part two. This is pretty much exactly what you thought it was going to be. An epic showdown of the original Avengers with Thanos, as well as the new heroes that we've been introduced to along the way fighting against Thanos. As well as this is essentially a love letter to the MCU as a whole. This whole thing hinges around the fact that the Infinity Stones have been destroyed in the current timeline, and 5 years later, the Avengers and Tony Stark figure out a way to go back in time and find the stones in the past so that they can undo what Thanos did. But in doing so, they revisit pretty much mainly the Battle of New York from the first Avengers, the Asgard right around the same time as Thor: The Dark World, as well as 2014's Guardians of the Galaxy, where the Power Stone is, as well as the Soul Stone is, and all of these things, it's essentially a love letter to the MCU, and we get to revisit these locations that we've had so much fun in, or maybe not in certain instances. There's a lot of fun to be had with going back in time, going back to what you've done before and seeing it in a new light from a different perspective, and being able to interact with one another, even if they don't even know it. In the case of the two Captain Americas and Tony trying to hide from his younger self, having to interact with the older Hulk, the more wizened Hulk, facing off against the more brutish Hulk. This is just it's hard to describe exactly how epic this is, as far as just so much stuff goes on in this film. It just gives you all the answers that you would want. Not necessarily all the ones you need, but all the ones that you would want. In the case of whatever happens to this person or that person, what's going to happen when this person goes away, or how is this person going to recover from this from X, Y, or Z? These are the kinds of questions that it deals with. This is really more of a character drama, whereas Infinity War was mostly about Thanos, focusing on his story arc, rightly so, because we really knew nothing about him going into this. This focuses more on giving closure to different aspects of the core Avengers, namely Tony Stark's personal issues with him trying to start a family and trying not to lose what he lost, lose what he has, and his reluctance to make the sacrifice play, or Captain America's willingness to put himself on the line time and again, even if it means giving up that what she really, really wants, namely a life with Peggy, or at some instance, and Thor trying to deal with so much loss in his life, his father, his brother, his mother, his home, half of his people, how to deal with all that and how to move forward going in. So much interesting character work yet to come with now that Gamora was killed in Infinity War. Her past self has been brought into the present, but she has basically no knowledge of Peter Quill, who has come back with the knowledge of all of these things. This relationship that he had with Gamora, is it the same Gamora? Probably not. Yes and no. How is that going to work out? That'll be an interesting thing going forward. We got to see how Pepper finally get into a suit and do actual action for the first time. How is that going to portray going forward? I don't think Gwyneth Paltrow is probably going to be showing up in the MCU. I think she's been pretty much done, but that was an interesting development and maybe tantalizing of maybe she might pop in into a different movie at some point in the future. Who knows? Just so many character drama going in on this, and it pretty much sticks the landing on nearly every point. And for a movie like this that has been the culmination of 22 films, that's an incredible achievement, and the Russos should be congratulated. Everyone who worked on this film should be congratulated, and all of the actors involved should also be given a pat on the back, because they've been these characters for almost 10 years now in the case of Iron Man and some of the others. These characters, they've been them for so long, it's going to be difficult for especially Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans to essentially give up these roles that they've done for so long. And they are Iron Man and Captain America. It's going to be hard for them to move on. We may end up seeing Thor in Guardians of the Galaxy 3. Who knows how that will be? I mean, that would be a fun way to go. But overall, it really feels, they nailed the fact that this feels like a conclusion to a saga, and I can't stress enough that they did a really good job with that. Most of my problems with this film are essentially nitpicky. Like the final battle when after the Avengers compound in New York has been bombed by Thanos, and Thanos faces off against what few Avengers are left, and then all the portals start opening, and everything comes in from Captain Marvel to Doctor Strange restored to the Warriors of Asgard and Valkyrie restored as one of on her Pegasus. All of the rest of the Guardians back again. Spider-Man back again. So all of these things come back, and then Thanos has his army, and then they start clashing. It should feel really, really epic, like on the scale of the Battle of Minas Tirith sort of epic. However, I feel like because there's so many things that they're trying to balance at once, I feel like the scale of it kind of runs away from it a little bit, and it doesn't do itself enough justice, if that makes sense. That might just be me. I may need to do another rewatch to see if that is as bad as I think, but I felt like in that moment it does kind of run away from itself a little bit. Also, I feel like this movie had sort of a similar problem with Infinity War, whereas with so many characters to balance, even more so in Infinity War, they're trying to balance, give everyone their due, and they do a great job with it, but there are certain instances where it does feel like certain characters are getting more than others, and probably rightfully so. This is the goodbye movie essentially to the core Avengers, namely Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, Hawkeye, Black Widow, and Hulk. So Those are the ones who get their main due, but there are others that are essentially going to be taking the reins, as it were, from here on in, that maybe don't get as much development as they maybe should have, or much screen time as they should have. That might just be me. Again, that may be inevitable given the scale of this film and so many characters to try to juggle. Also, I will say, Captain America, or not Captain America, Captain Marvel was essentially pointless to the story. I mean, she saves Tony in the beginning, yes, he doesn't die in space, and then she's gone for nearly the entire movie, and then she shows up at the very end to destroy Thanos' ship. I mean, that was important. And then she showed up for the girl power fan service shot, which I'm glad they had that moment, but the way they shot that fan service moment, it felt a little ham-fisted and heavy-handed, but and she had a brief, like 10 to 15 second fight with Thanos, and then she got shoved away. That's it. That's all she does. And I will say, it's like, there's really no point in rewatching Captain Marvel before seeing this movie, because she shot her Endgame scenes before Captain Marvel, and it really shows, because there's really nothing here in Endgame in regards to Captain Marvel. So I really hope that she gets a chance to do something more in the future, because if people were slightly disappointed by what Captain Marvel was and were hoping that she might get more of a thing to do and be better defined in Endgame, they're really going to be disappointed then, because she got nothing here. So let's hope that her sequel does better at that point. And really, the only other nitpicky thing that I was just disappointed about is I really thought Bucky should have been given the shield at the end and not Sam. And I mean, on the one hand, they're probably both toss up. They've both been Captain America in the comics, but as far as like emotional arcs, what emotions have we shared with between Steve Rogers and Sam Wilson or whatever? We have the one scene where he sticks with him at the end of Winter Soldier. We see him briefly in some brief interactions in Civil War. We see him briefly again in Infinity War, bantering slightly, and that's it. I mean, there's so much more connection with Bucky, and it would have been much more of a interesting narrative going forward of how can Bucky, who's still trying to live up to rectify his mistakes that he's made, all the terrible things he's done as the Winter Soldier, trying to live peaceably at that point. Then his friend gives him the chance to become the symbol of freedom and hope at that point. The ultimate redemption, his ultimate tool for redemption at that point. Wouldn't that be much more interesting at that point than Sam becoming Captain America? That's just my personal opinion. Other people may disagree, but that was just one of my minor beefs with this film. So my main takeaway from this film, it's not 100% perfect, but I'd say this is a solid 93 or 94. This is an amazing achievement. Well done. And the main thing about this is it does nothing to diminish the characters as looking back on anything that they've done. So that is an amazing achievement. The actors can go off knowing that they've done an incredible achievement. Well done, Marvel. Yeah, definitely go. If you have not seen this and you've been spoiled already, go see it anyway. It's amazing. So, first, as just some analysis on where you may have seen it before, the one thing that this film relies on is that the time heist of they don't know where these stones of power are, but they know where they were in the past, so they go back and steal them in the past. Similar to a story in the season 8 finale of Stargate SG-1 Moebius, when the SG-1 goes back in time to Egypt in order to find a ZPM where they knew where it was in ancient Egypt because they couldn't find any in their present time. And then by doing so, they end up breaking the timeline. So then they have to go back and fix the timeline, similar to how Hulk is saying, or the Ancient One is saying that if you remove a stone, it'll break the timeline, but then they put it back to restore it. A similar situation there. Another instance would be, and it would be with the Stargate Voyager episode Shattered, in which the Voyager's broken up into various different time frames, and they have to go back through the ship, and basically it's from season 7, I believe, which explains why they go back to all their past areas in the ship, and then it's essentially a revisit of everything that's come before, and they can see all these things from the past in a new light, similar to how they go back in time to the Battle of New York and Thor: The Dark World and Guardians of the Galaxy in this, and you get to revisit that as well. Also, it is mentioned in the movie, and it's somewhat annoying how they poke fun at how the whole concept of the time heist is essentially Back to the Future, and how Back to the Future is a whole bunch of bullshit, essentially. But then that's essentially exactly what it is, where they go back and they see their past selves, they can't interact with their past selves, and they're trying to take something back without their past knowing about it. Pretty much exactly like Back to the Future 2, where Marty has to go back to 1955 and he's reliving the events of the first film from his own perspective and trying to not interfere with his past self while also trying to take back the sports almanac. So they poke fun at it, but then that's exactly what they do. And finally, just a minor stylistic point, in the end credits, it is immensely satisfying to see the core 6 Avengers, their actors, their credits with their signatures and their previous footage of their characters. That just reminded me a lot of the end credits of Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country, when the core crew was, their credits were just their signatures, because that film was also supposed to be the farewell, the movie to the original crew of the Enterprise, of the original Star Trek Enterprise, and that they were never all going to be in the same film ever again, and similar feeling, and I can't help but feel that that is a direct comparison to be made. So there you have it. There's my review and analysis of Avengers Endgame. What did you think of this film? Did you like it? Did you not like it? What about my analysis? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Did I miss anything? I may have missed something. Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate whatever audience I can get. Be sure to look for my next movie review coming out. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, honestly, but I also do movie reviews, not movie reviews, TV reviews. Be sure to look for, I've done a reaction series to each and every episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Discovery. I'll also be posting a review and a recap of the season on my channel soon. I'll also be doing that same for my reaction to each episode of Season 2 of The Orville, as well as a recap of that coming soon. All of that's on my channel. If you like what you see on my channel here or any of my other videos, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Again, thank you so much for watching, but just remember, there is nothing new under the sun, and yes, you have seen it before.